Thank you for tuning in to the Into the Classroom series produced by Mental Health California, sponsored by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative.
Welcome to our Into the Classroom, which is a student mental health awareness multimedia series produced by Mental Health California. I'm your host, Conrad Crump, affectionately known as Coach Crump, and today's topic is on managing new transitions and new environments and the impact of student mental health. We'll talk about how managing transitions and new environments can have a significant impact on the mental health of students. The disruptive nature of these changes, coupled with cultural and societal factors, can create instability and affect students' overall well-being. We know that by implementing targeted interventions, providing resources, and fostering a supportive environment, we can ensure that students thrive in their new school environments and maintain their mental health throughout the process. Now, today we'll focus on the general student population as well as immigrant students so they can all build resilience and successfully navigate these transitions. Today, we're joined by our clinician, Ali Garza, who is a licensed clinical social worker on faculty with the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Colorado. She has expertise in youth suicide prevention, crisis intervention, supporting parents and families, and treating OCD and anxiety-related disorders. Welcome, Ali. How are you?
I'm doing pretty great. How about yourself?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. We also have with us a few youth guests today as well. I'd like to welcome Monica Tamayo from the University of California at Los Angeles. Hey there, Monica. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. I'd also like to welcome Sophia Toledo from William J. Pete Knight High School. Hey there, Sophia. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. And we also have with us Michael Betlak from Sacramento State University. What's up, Michael?
What's up, Coach Crump? How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm great. And last but certainly not least, we have with us Keyshawn Williams, who is a recent graduate of Sac State University. Hey there, Keyshawn.
How you doing, Coach? Good to see you.
Hey, man. Good. So now that we're all here, I'd love to jump into this discussion, but I'd like to actually turn it over to Ali to provide us with some brief clinical insights into managing transitions and new environments and where youth can find additional support during these unstable times. Ali?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some unique challenges that come with transitions and new environments, and that it's very much so a double-edged sword. I would say most folks would say for us to be able to grow and to maybe better ourselves or expand our horizons, transition and new environments are part of the deal. I would also say that with all the newness and the unknown comes uncertainty, and with uncertainty comes anxiety a lot of the times, or fears, or maybe like an increase in symptoms due to some of the ways that we managed, stressors in the past maybe have to shift. So I think especially with going to college, that can be a huge time of transition in which we're determining how can we set up the same structure, the same supports, and where do we go to? And I think that's where there's kind of some different realms. Yes, there's of course getting connected with mental health services if that's something that you need, but also how do I find connection? How do I find maybe academic support, social supports, like supports around my health? All these different areas can help smooth the transition and maybe not take away all the uncomfortableness that comes with it, but rather help launch us into like the next season of life. So.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Ellie. That was a great overview. So now let me ask some of our young folks, by a show of hands, how many of you here have dealt with or are currently dealing with a transition or a new environment? Okay. Now I'd like to kind of probe a little further. Monica, I saw you raise your hand. Can you talk to us about what that new environment is and what's going on?
Yeah, so for me, one of the new environments that I had was transitioning from high school where I had, my parents' help, and, just always being there waking me up for school and like reminding me of deadlines. Whereas once I went to college, I didn't have my parents with me and I had to do everything on my own. So that transition by on its own was big for me. And then of course it goes like with the new curriculum, it's faster paced. There's a lot more studying involved. And all of that was just one of like the biggest transitions that I've had.
Well, thanks for that, Monica. And I think I saw Keyshawn's hand raised. Keyshawn, can you talk to us about your current transition or new environment that you're experiencing?
Yeah. I mean, change is something for me that I definitely resist, and it's always a hard thing for me to go through. I would say some of the biggest changes, like Monica mentioned, going from high school to college and becoming more self-sufficient and being on your own. And yeah, taking the time to figure yourself out within a new space without your friends and without your family. And it's a big transition, but it always every transition I've come out better. That's what I feel like.
Awesome. Thanks for that feedback there, Keyshawn. So let's, look into our presentation that we have here so we can go a little bit further in on this topic. All right. Now, as we understand, ultimately there is a lot to be said about transition, a lot to be said about new environments and experiencing new environments. There was a recent study done by the American Psychological Association where approximately 30% of students experience difficulty adjusting to a new environment. There's a lot that can be said about that because when we understand that students that are dealing with these new environments, they have a lot going on in addition to their, day-to-day tasks or their, responsibilities that they have, their family commitments, all of those different things that really impact their lives. So new environments, is nothing new for a lot of folks, young folks particularly, who are transitioning from high school to college, or even like some of the folks on the call, like Keyshawn, who are transitioning out of college into what is to be, presented for him in his life. So there's a lot of different transitions happening. Let's go ahead and go on to our next slide. As we know, in today's unsettled world, this disruption can make itself manifest in a number of different ways. This includes increased stress and anxiety, as well as having feelings of loneliness. A sudden change in routine or social dynamics and academic expectations can overwhelm students and lead them to decline in their own overall well-being. This again significantly impacts the mental health and wellness of our young folks. So it's something to really raise awareness on. Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. Now, a study was done and it was published in the Journal of Adolescent Health, which found that students who experienced multiple school transitions actually had higher levels of depressive symptoms and lower self-esteem compared to their peers who remained in the same school. Now, this highlights the need for targeted support and interventions to help students navigate these transitions successfully. And, I want to ask, how many of us here have changed high schools more than once? I'll raise my hand. Allie? Okay, so Allie, can you talk to me about your experience of that transition of changing from one school, one place, one, social setting onto the next?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with those transitions, it makes sense that those symptoms may become stronger because now you're navigating how to adapt to different social environments, different structures, and with that can come an increase in like maybe questions around your identity or your sense of self, or where do I belong or how do I fit in. I would also say that, again, it's like a double-edged sword, that I would say you really flex that muscle of practicing being adaptive and flexibility. But sometimes, especially if you're not conscious and the adults in your life aren't conscious about how they provide that stability and that consistency in that transition, I can absolutely see how those symptoms can increase.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree. And that goes back to the need, right? Highlights the need for just targeted support and interventions to help students navigate those transitions successfully. I'm sure there may be even folks in the audience who probably raised their hand as well. But let's go ahead and go on to our next slide. So when we talk about the family, right, the family or caretaking environment, that environment plays a crucial role in the ability for students to integrate into a new environment. Research has shown that a supportive and nurturing family environment can provide a sense of stability and security, and that can help to buffer those negative effects of that transition. So when you have a strong caretaking environment, family environment, it just really helps to navigate those transitions and those changes that are happening in your life. Let's go on to our next slide. Research, again, has shown that students with that strong family support are more likely to adapt well to new environments. Parents and caretakers can really do a number of different things to support this, which ranges from maintaining open lines of communication, providing emotional support, and encouraging their children to engage in extracurricular activities or join clubs to foster new connections and new friendships. Super important. Now let's move on to our next slide. Now, when it comes to cultural and language barriers, immigrant students often face unique challenges when transitioning to new school environments. They often have to navigate cultural and language barriers, which can further complicate the integration process. However, research has shown that immigrant students are resilient and can cope with these challenges. And I'd like to turn over to you, Ali, and see if you can maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the, the things that our immigrant student populations have to face, and maybe supports that exist for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say what supports exist just very much so vary district by district, county by county. And the hope is that through the school, especially, that they're able to get connected with resources, whether it be, through the lens of the culture that they come from, through the lens of the language that they speak, especially when working with parents and families, making sure that we have culturally competent clinicians that are connected with these families. And along with that, resources. I mean, something that may seem small, like having a document that's translated in different languages, is so crucial in being able to support these folks in making this transition that is really challenging a lot of the times, feel smoother, more natural, and just feeling like they have that support and they're not feeling isolated. So different things like that, I would say, go a long way. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for the field to expand as far as like integrating those supports even more so, and expanding those services for families and students.
Very, very helpful. Thanks a lot for that. And, a study was conducted by the Migration Policy Institute that found that immigrant students who received support from their teachers and from their peers actually had higher levels of academic achievement, as well as social integration. Strategies such as cultural sensitivity, which you kind of touched on, those types of trainings for teachers, having peer mentoring programs, all of those, like you mentioned, language support services, they all can help to facilitate a smoother transition for our immigrant students. And, that actually kind of goes into our next slide there, where we're kind of just understanding that a whole host of resources and supports for immigrant students is really important so that they can be integrated into the school system or social settings smoothly, and they can be allowed to really alleviate those factors that can be challenges or barriers to their success. Now, let's go ahead and go on to our next slide. Now, when it comes to cultural and societal factors, we see that they also play a significant role in students, managing these transitions as well as their new environments. Now, it can range from financial constraints, again, familial expectations, social pressures, economic disparities, and other environmental factors, all of which can impact a student's ability to adapt. I want to ask some of our youth here, when we talk about some of these things, whether it be financial, social, familial, I'd like to ask you, if you could elaborate on some of the challenges that you face. So I'll touch on, or I actually would like to ask Michael if you can just kind of elaborate on if you've had some of those experiences and what that was like for you.
I feel like the environmental factor was a big part of my adjustment period because I was coming into a completely new city here in Sacramento. I didn't know anybody here. It was just me by myself. My first day moving into the dorms, it was like my second day ever on campus, so even the campus was completely new. I was trying to figure out parking, little things like that. I was trying to figure out where's the nearest grocery store, where can I eat? What are the good parts of town, the bad parts of town? And, it's kind of hard when you don't know anybody here. So it's kind of like who do you ask that to, So it was a lot of growing, on my own, I guess I would say, and just experimenting and, trying to meet new people. And it was tough for a bit of the first semester, because, school just kicks off and, it's kind of hard to worry about everything else at the same time. But yeah, the environment was a big factor when I first came into college.
Wow. Thanks a lot for that, Michael. I appreciate it. How about you, Keyshawn?
I would say I'd like to touch on the social part of kind of what Michael was saying, only because I've noticed I went to college when I was a little bit older. So all of my friends had already picked the colleges that they went to. And I didn't have someone on campus. Like I couldn't bring a friend around with me to do things. And I started to notice how much we all kind of rely on that, as far as you take your best friend with you to go to this party, you take them to go to this social event, you take them to, I don't know, you might want to take a new class and you ask your friend, okay, hey, let's sign up for that. But when you're changing environments and you don't have anyone socially to help you handle that change of environment, as Ali was kind of saying, it's kind of a double-edged sword of you have to flex that muscle of, okay, I'm doing this myself. I can take myself to this social event. I could take this class by myself. I could handle this homework by myself. So I'd say it is a double-edged sword, as Ali had said earlier.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Thanks a lot for that feedback, Keyshawn. Now, Sophia, you're in high school. Talk to us about some of the things that you're experiencing, whether it be familial, financial, social, environment. Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, for me, I'm in high school. I remember when I just got in my freshman year. It is very different for me between middle school and high school, because I feel like in high school they give you way more work than they did in middle school. Because I'm gonna be honest, they didn't give me anything in middle school, and so in high school especially because right now I'm in my junior year and they're giving me like a good amount of work, and I have marching band on the side too, and it's kind of hard to like balance both of those things out. But in the end, I figure it out, and then I have a schedule where I could sort those things out and how I manage my time. And so that's it's a very big transition for me because I have to deal with both marching band after school and my homework. So yeah.
Very good. Yeah, no, that's a lot to be juggling, and kudos to you for handling it all, and kudos to you also for creating a schedule, because we're going to talk a little bit about that later on as well. Let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. So finances, right? So when it comes to finances, we know that students from low-income backgrounds may face additional stressors related to their financial stability or instability, which can affect their mental health and their academic performance. Schools and communities can address these factors by providing resources such as scholarships, financial aid, transportation, social activities, and mental health support services. Let's go on to our next slide. So when we talk about clinical interventions, we know that it's important for schools to prioritize mental health and provide clinical strategies to help students cope. And this can range, from counseling services to support groups, as well as workshops on stress management and resilience building. Additionally, schools can really support students by implementing holistic interventions such as mindfulness practices, yoga, and art therapy to promote overall well-being for students. So I'd like to ask about the clinical side of things, and we have our clinician here, Ali. Can you talk to us about the role that schools can really take in terms of prioritizing mental health for their students?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that schools are much more intentional and thorough with offering those resources than even when I was in high school. None of those things, if they were offered at my school, I certainly wasn't aware. But I think there's a lot of opportunities with like support groups or group therapy to connect with other folks with similar lived experiences. There's really been an uptick in a wide variety of groups, whether it's based on different identities or different diagnoses or kind of different types of lived experiences. So groups for, people with social anxiety or who are on the spectrum, or students who are people of color, whatever, they have a wide variety in which you can connect with others. I think that peer aspect is huge. They also can sometimes connect students with therapy in school, which can be really helpful as far as reducing the barriers to access to care, which is a huge burden that students shouldn't have to bear, and yet they do oftentimes. So getting connected with individual therapy or getting connected through the school with resources that are out in the community to help with those transitions or life stressors that come up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I remember in high school, we didn't have too many options when it came to really support and resources. I know we had a school counselor that we could talk to, but I don't think that person was trained with regard to having that cultural competency, as well as all of the many different factors that students really go through. So I can certainly say that today's day and age, a lot of students really have a host of services, which also can vary from campus to campus. But, ultimately, the government has really provided funding for students to be able to have mental health and wellness support. So students definitely should be aware that they exist and access them if they feel the need. So let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. So when we talk about campus-based supports, this is something that you kind of touched on, Ali. Again, it varies from campus to campus. You can often find college orientation programs that might provide their incoming students with information about campus resources, about the academic expectations, as well as opportunities for involvement. And there are also peer support programs such as buddy systems or mentorship initiatives, which can pair new students with older experienced students who can really offer that guidance and support and give that insight. So that's something that we definitely want to make sure our students are aware of as well. Also, schools can create safe spaces for students to express their concerns and provide academic support through tutoring programs and study groups. So let's move on to our next slide. Now let's get into some self-care strategies. This is some of my favorite stuff here because self-care can vary. It can include establishing a daily routine, to help students feel more grounded and in control during their school transitions. I think Sophia even talked about this, having a daily routine, knowing what to expect, having a set and consistent schedule. These are all things that help to give you a sense of stability and also help to reduce stress. There's no surprises. You know what time you got to get up, what time you got to study, what time you're going to eat, what time you're going to go to bed. All these different things can create balance in a student's life when the world may be somewhat chaotic, especially during the time of high school or college. Again, another aspect is taking breaks. Let's move on to our next slide because I want to talk about this because the notion of taking breaks is really important. Students should definitely take regular breaks to recharge and relax, engage in activities like going for walks, listening to music or practicing deep breathing exercises. All of these things can help to improve their focus and their productivity. But we also want to talk about some of these other options, right? Connecting with others and practicing those self-care tips. So when it comes to connecting with others, building a support network is crucial during school transitions. Students should reach out to classmates, join clubs or organizations, and participate in social activities, and try to connect with others as much as they can to help reduce those feelings of isolation, and as well as help to provide a sense of belonging. So I want to pivot to some of our students here because we've got self-care here on our screen, but I want to ask what each of your self-care practices might look like. So I want to start with you, Sophia. What does self-care look like for you?
Self-care is, for me, I have hobbies. I play my instrument when I have nothing else to do, or I talk to my friend if I just have thoughts in my head that I want to get out but I don't feel like I could tell anyone else. I just tell my friend, certain stuff about how I feel about the things that I want to say, and then he gives back his feedback, and then we agree, and that gets my mind off the certain stuff. And so then I also, like I said, I go back to playing trumpet, and then it's really fun for me. It really gets my mind off of a lot of things. And so I also like to cook. Cooking is really fun, and also when you're done cooking, you get to eat what you made. So honestly, I feel like if you do like a lot of things, finding many things to do, like hobbies, like even this meeting right now, it's very, it's good for your mental health, I feel like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, being able to be even in spaces like this is something that helps me and, carries me along as well. So I totally agree. And one of these days, I'm going to have to hear that trumpet, Sophia. So looking forward to that. How about you, Monica? Can you talk to me about what some of your self-care tips or practices look like?
Yeah, so for me, I like to get like out of the house. I like to make sure that I'm outside, spending a good amount of time in the sun because sometimes I find myself like being indoors all day, and that's not good for anybody, I feel. So I'll do that. I will try to attend like social groups, like at least the ones that are offered by the university, because sometimes they have little events like, oh, we'll have a paint day or a yoga on the field, and just like any little group like that that I could attend. And a lot of the times, they're free, so it doesn't hurt to just attend them and get into a positive mind space.
Very good. Very good. All right, Michael, talk to me. What does self-care look like for you?
Um, I don't know if it's necessarily self-care, but kind of some like a tip that I wanted to give about how I manage new environments and transitions is, especially going into college, it can be your mind can be clouded very fast. There's so many just new things around you. You're on your own for the first time. There's a number of distractions, and it can get easy to fall off track. And so kind of what helped me stay grounded was to just remember, like, what am I truly here for? What is the purpose of me being at this college? What am I paying for? What is my mom paying for? And then another thing that helped me as well is, why am I doing it? Like, what's the point of doing this? And so it helps me to visually see that. Like, I have a vision board in front of me. I just have reminders around my room. And that's kind of the way that I take care of myself and keep myself focused and grounded. And that really helps me to stay away from distractions, and it just helps me stay focused, and I feel like it's really important when you're on your own and you're out here for the first time. It's a big change, and so it's very important to stay focused.
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely feel that, and especially the writing the reminders around your room. That's certainly important as well. Huge benefit. Okay, Keyshawn, take us home, man. Talk to me about what self-care looks like for you.
I'm actually going to keep it short, and I just agree with Monica about being outside. Like, is there any way that I could be outside more, whether or not maybe I eat a meal outside, maybe I go ride my bike, maybe I take a walk. It's just being outside, getting some sunlight, and stepping away from all of the commotion of everyday life, because the commotion follows you inside to your room. You might look and see your book bag sitting over there and you're thinking about all the homework that you have to do. You might be looking at the clock thinking, oh dang, I got work at 4:30 or whatever. So just getting away from all that and being outside.
Yeah, no, very good. And I couldn't agree with you more. Sunlight is a huge benefit. I mean, folks, you guys in the audience, you've heard it here, from our young folks here on our session today who've talked to you about a number of different strategies, different tips, some of which I use and some of which I plan to use in my own life. So I'd like to really personally thank each of you here. Thank you, Keyshawn. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Monica. And a huge thank you to Ali for always coming through with that clinical analysis, into our conversation. I want to appreciate all of you all. And also, I want to thank you, our audience, for joining Into the Classroom, which is a production of Mental Health California. Please be sure to visit us at mentalhealthca.org. If you'd like to access health and mental wellness topics for boys and men of color, please visit our signature initiative at brotherbewell.com. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our blog. Also, I'd like to give a huge thank you to our sponsor, Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative, which promotes access to mental health support. You can learn all about their program at bluesky.blueshieldca.com. With that, I'm your host, Conrad Crump, aka Coach Crump. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.